Hello and welcome to the RamsTalk preview show. This is actually quite a symbolic episode for RamsTalk. It's our 100th episode since we started doing the previews, the reaction shows. Obviously, it's been a hell of a ride for the club, ourselves as a podcast. And obviously, to go for that, we are talking all things Bolton Wanderers. Just before I introduce our guest, we are trying to go for the Football Podcast Awards. We are doing a little bit of a plea at the start of each episode. So if you do enjoy the content, please do vote for us. The link will be in the description of this show on all podcast platforms as well as YouTube. So to introduce the guest, we had him on last season. I've got Derek Clark, commentator from Bolton FM and Wanderers TV. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me back on, Callum. I feel honoured at sort of your centenary of shows. So, yeah, thanks for having
me. No, it's an absolute pleasure. I said you were absolutely brilliant last year. Everyone really enjoyed the episode. So I said we'll get you back on to preview this quite big clash, I'd say, going into the weekend. I mean, you guys played yesterday evening, so before we probably go on to the game this weekend coming up, I'll probably just touch on how you got on last night against Middlesbrough. Obviously, it was a defeat, so the cup run came to an end. But how was the performance? How did the team merit? I saw there was several changes, so there's probably a much changed side, so what we'll probably see at the weekend. But how did they get on?
Yeah, 7 changes in all from the team that drew a Burton at the weekend. But they did well. They started brightly, took the lead, brilliant goal. Dion Charles put them ahead midway through the first half. Middlesbrough were not really threatening at all, but the first real attack they scored. Matt Crooks lobbed the ball over Joel Coleman. But it was a very even first half. Bolton were given as good as they've got. And then the second half, Middlesbrough really... truth be told, ran away with it in the end. Their class showed. I know they've had a sticky start to the season, and I think their league position is a bit of a false one, in all honesty, because they play some good stuff at times, and for a lot of the second half, Bolton were chasing shadows. But like you say, a lot of changes were made to the team. I envisage that a number of players that were on the bench last night or who didn't feature will be featuring at the weekend. But yeah, they took Middlesbrough all the way until stoppage time, and they got 2 late goals, but I don't think any Bolton fan that was at the game would have too many complaints at it going out of the competition. It was a decent showing against a team, obviously, in a division above. It's where Bolton are looking to play their football next season, and hopefully it'll be a lesson for one or two. I don't think they'll be coming up against a team of that calibre, possibly, unless we get a good cup run in the FA Cup this season. So hopefully they'll take the lessons on board from last night. But a decent showing, but in the end, I think Middlesbrough, the class just shone through.
Yeah, I mean, it's the case when you play against those sort of teams in the League Cup. It's kind of to see you put yourself against those teams that you're hopefully going up against in seasons to come. But it's one of those competitions that maybe those sort of teams in the upper divisions don't really take seriously, and that's where you can kind of take advantage. But obviously, it wasn't to be last night. I mean, do you see playing last night? Obviously, Derby will have a fresh week of training. No game, obviously, for us. Do you see that being any sort of factor going into the weekend?
Possibly. I mean, like I said, there was 7 changes made. I know that Ricardo Santos limped off injured at the weekend against Burton, so it remains to be seen if he's going to be fit for the game. I know Owen Toll came back for the first time this season last night, so that is a bonus, of course. But yeah, it's an interesting one because Bolton started off like a train, and then the Wigan game happened, and they've just looked like slightly off it in the last few games. I think a point away to Burton is a decent result, especially if you go behind. But last night, I thought they gave a good account of themselves, but certainly there's a bit of unrest amongst some after that heavy defeat to Wigan. But I think that the players will just be itching to get back on the grass again and try and get another win under their belt. So I'm not entirely sure it might be a good thing for Derby having the fresh legs, perhaps. But I'm sure that Paul Warne and the likes would have loved to have a game in midweek as opposed to a free week. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there the form is kind of a bit jaded. I mean, you started off like you said so well, and then that defeat to Wigan kind of shocked everyone, to be honest, in terms of the manner of it. Obviously, Wigan obviously handed us a defeat also at our place. I mean, we've won our last 2 fixtures in the league. You obviously got a draw against Burton, and then obviously the defeat to Wigan. I mean, that inconsistency is probably going to happen at this early stage of the season, and it's not too much to worry about. But I mean, you mentioned the 4-0 defeat to Wigan. Obviously, we saw them at Pride Park in a 2-1 defeat to us. What really stood out for you in that 4-0 defeat that maybe just warrants a bit of caution for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, both flanks were sort of targeted, and likewise last night, Middlesbrough were targeting, especially down the left-hand side. So that's an area that might be a slight concern about. Goalkeeper position, I know Nathan Baxter has been really good in the main, but he had an off day against Wigan, produced a stunning save last night, incidentally. But Joe Coleman, of course, he started the game, went off injured, so the manager did say last night that he may be forced to go into the transfer market to bring another goalkeeper in, which it was a weird, just going off piece slightly. You know, if it is historically doesn't put a goalie on the bench, but last night he did do so, and he had to call up upon a substitute goalkeeper, so it just shows you. But yeah, I think that down the flanks, I think that is a potential weakness at this point in time. It remains to be seen if Bolton will strengthen before the transfer window shuts late on Friday. I'd imagine there will be a bit of activity, but Ian Evatt did say it last night that trust the process. They are averaging 2 points a game. 10 points from 5 games is good going. They're sitting third in the table. I think everyone would have been happy with that at the start of the season with the start that they've had. So I think obviously the Wigan result, as you said, it was a bit of a shocker. You don't want to be losing to them at any point in the season. So I think they just need to get back on the horse. This is a huge game, of course, at the weekend. Derby County come and calling. They'll bring a huge fan base as well. So it'll be the makings of a right cracking game. Let's hope we get more goals than the last time Derby came up. Yeah, I think it's one of those ones. I think we just need to take stock. Wigan was a disappointment, but I think there was shoots of recovery the week after, as I mentioned, down at Burton, especially after going a goal behind. Never an easy place to go. And they're back at home, of course, at the weekend. So it's an intriguing one, because I know when we're looking at the Derby results at the start of the season, you boys have been looked on as favourites to go up this season, and there was a bit of there was a wee bit unrest amongst your supporters as well towards Paul Warren, but he has been getting results. But it just shows you these clubs are big football clubs at the end of the day, and the fans are expectant. So pressure comes with that as well, doesn't it?
No, you're spot on. I mean, when you look at ourselves as a fan base, yourselves as a fan base, you want your club, and you kind of see your club in a higher stance than probably what it is obviously currently in real time. I mean, Derby are renowned to be a championship side, Bolton ex-Premier League back in the day. So you kind of look at it and go, both clubs are not where they should be in the football pyramid. But obviously this is where we are, and we need to both obviously try and aim to get out of it. And we both didn't do that last season. So this is probably the season where you look at the league and it's probably, I wouldn't say the weaker side, but there's more opportunity to go up, I'd say. I don't know what your thoughts are on the league as a whole, and Bolton, where they sit in that.
Yeah, I think on paper, it's. I think last year was one of the strongest League Ones there's been in quite some time. On paper, it looks slightly weaker. I don't think anyone would deny that. But, I mean, there's pressure. I mean, Bolton obviously get into the playoffs last season. Derby just missed out. So the club have progressed each season under Ian Evatt. So with that, there is pressure to get those automatics this season. That is the aim. The manager knows that, and that's what he's targeting, of course. So with each result, and he did say last night, they will lose games. They're not going out to lose games, but as part of the course in football, you can't win every single game you go out to win, but they'll give their all to try and win every game. But it's a marathon, not a sprint, the old League One campaign. And I'm sure there'll be a few bumps in the road, but I think from the outset, you're looking at the likes of Derby and Bolton being up there in sort of the automatics. So I think this is a huge game on Saturday. It'll be interesting to see the level that both teams are at. I know, well, as far as Bolton Wanderers are concerned, as I mentioned, a lot of changes being made. You look at the squad, and there's a lot of strength and depth there, but there's a number of players that are still sort of that have come in the summer that you're just waiting to break through and make a right good impression. So who knows, Saturday might be the first time for that.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of new faces for yourself. I mean, he's not a new face, but it was some big news that the star man up top, Dion Charles, managed to get penned down for a new deal at Bolton. It's probably relief more than anything to Bolton fans and to yourself as watching the team, having a talisman like he is within the league, commit his future. I mean, is that as big as any new signing for Bolton?
Yeah, it's huge because, like you say, there was a bit of noise round about him, and he started the season off well. I mentioned there he scored a great team goal. He tapped it home from a couple of yards out, couldn't miss, but it was he's a huge player for Bolton. He did miss that Wigan game through that ridiculous double yellow he got in the game against Fleetwood. It was a real bonkers sending off, but he's huge. He leads from the front, he defends from the front, harries everyone. He's a defender's worst nightmare because he doesn't give them a second's piece. So I think him signing that new deal is a real statement of intent, and really will appease the supporters, because there would have been slight concern with the calibre of teams that were looking at him. I think Stoke City were one of them. I think Watford were rumoured to be interested as well. So he loves it at Bolton Wanderers. Of course, he wants to play at a level above, and he's got ambition. He said at the start of the season he's targeting 30 goals this season, which is quite incredible. He's on 4 already, but he loves scoring goals. He's a confidence player as well. So that's 2 and 2 he's got in the last couple of games. So he'll be itching to score on Saturday as well. He always says to us when we speak to him, he likes proving people wrong, and he really looks like he's got a point to prove and show that he can hit that 30 goals and fire Bolton up the divisions. And fresh from it, you get called up as well yesterday to the Northern Ireland squad, so I know he's banging the goals in for them as well. So that'll do him the world of good in terms of his confidence. So yeah, he's a top player for Bolton, but often last season they were perhaps over-reliant on him to get the goals, but we're looking at other players to step up and get the goals. And to be fair to his credit, Victor Adebayejo has struck up a decent partnership with him, using 4 goals as well. So that's good news. But the other lads that usually appear from the bench, like I said, Danny Lindelof, Cameron Jerome, you're looking at these guys to perhaps contribute a bit more in terms of goals.
Yeah, it's not having that heavily reliance on one player, which is what we were very much so last year with McGoldrick. What you need is those players who dot in and around with those 7, 8, 9, 10 goals that just obviously just pip you up against obviously the opposition. I mean, when you look at, we've got Connor Washington just recently received another call up for Northern Ireland as well. So him and Dion Charles will get familiar on their camp. I mean, when you look at the matchups going into Saturday, both teams, or both managers, should I say, like to play that 3 at the back formation. I mean, we are kind of tinkering with that at the moment due to injuries and players being available. So we've seen a more 4 at the back over the last couple of games, was obviously warranted 2 results. I mean, what would you say is the Ian Evatt kind of style of play going into the new season? Has it much changed from last season? Should we see a similar, obviously, outset going into the new game?
Yeah, it's the same expansive style. Like to play it from the back. And they like to get the wing backs forward and high, so you shouldn't expect much difference to the Bolton setup that you encountered last season. So yeah, it's brave. I mean, he said last night as well, he wants his players to be brave on the ball, especially when you're coming up against teams from a higher division. Derby will be the same. You need to have a bit of bravery on the ball and not be afraid to make passes that are a bit risky at times. So it's good to watch. In terms of going to watch football, I mean, the brand of football is brilliant to see, and I know they're selling a record number of season tickets and what have you, so it shows you that the fans are being entertained and they are liking what they're watching under the manager. So I don't think it'll be conservative in any way. I know that people say, 3 at the back, they just think it's an extra defender and you're going defensive. That's not the case. I can expect a pretty open game on Saturday. I think there will be gaps at certain points, but like I say, the wing backs, they're reliant on usually Dacres Cogley and Randell Williams on both flanks. They've got terrific engines on them, the both of them, so they'll run all day long. So they're huge for Bolton. Last season had Connor Bradley, of course, on the right-hand side, who was just a machine and on the left, they brought in Randall for the second half of the season. Declan John played his part at points as well, but it looks like he's heading out the door. I think that those two will be big. Midfield is key as well. Your likes of Kyle Dempsey, it remains to be seen who will play alongside him. I know that he's chopped and changed at points in terms of his midfielders. So it remains to be seen who will play there. I think Dempsey will start the game and he'll try and dictate things and create in the final third especially. So, expect an open game on Saturday, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, I just got up the starting lineup against Burton Albion. I mean, when you look at that midfield, you've got that kind of holding midfielder in George Thomason, kind of sat there, and he's played the last two fixtures. He played even yesterday evening. I mean, is he that integral that he's had to play in the League Cup as well as the league on obviously last weekend?
Yeah, well, the thing with George is he's also just signed a recent contract extension off the back of turning down an approach from Bristol City, which again is another statement of intent. You're thinking team in the higher division, you wouldn't blame him if he was to go, but he just loves it at Bolton. He's a mature head on young shoulders, George. He's always a pleasure to speak to. He's one that he feels that he owes Bolton a great deal for plucking him from non-league, and he's repaying the faith. He's improved, like the team pretty much has every year, and he's developed into a very good, tough tackling midfielder, but he can spray a pass as well. So he's becoming more so a permanent fixture in the team. But there's a number of players, like I said, the squad's very strong at the moment. So they've got Aaron Morley, who they can bring in. Josh Sheehan as well can play in that sort of defensive midfield role. Paris Magoma, who they got from Brentford on loan, he's one that we've seen flashes from him, but we're just waiting for him to sort of ignite, I think. So they have got plenty of options in there. I think Thomason, if I was to pick the team right now, I think Thomason would be in the starting lineup for me.
Yeah.
Just because he adds a bit of bite in that midfield and gets on the ball. And like I say, talking about bravery, he's just not afraid to make passes and usually 9 times out of 10 that they reach the intended target. So I think he could be a big player on Saturday as well.
Yeah. If you were going to give any Derby fans listening some hope going into Saturday, I mean, two opponents got the better of you. I mean, Burton managed to salvage a draw, but obviously Wigan got the better of you at Bolton. I mean, what did both those teams do, or what was really the marker to say that Bolton really struggled to obviously break down Bolton, and obviously struggled to break down Wigan, and obviously conceded 4 goals? What would you put those two results down to that Derby might be able to exploit?
Yeah, I think it's just being aggressive and in Bolton's faces pretty much. Don't allow them time to play their own game. They like to dominate games and dictate play. Wigan never allowed that. They were in their faces from the off and were aggressive, winning those second balls and just breaking up play and making it ugly at times. So if Derby are looking to get a result, then I'd imagine Paul Warne will be stressing that to the players. Don't give them time and space to pick out passes and play their own game. So that's what, if I was Paul Warne, that's what I'd be saying in the dressing room. And it's a big test, this, for Bolton. Like you say, the Wigan game was a big one. This is also another big one. So the Bolton fans will be turning up on Saturday looking for a big performance from the team. So it's a big game for a number of them who have been slightly... it's hard to say off the ball because they have had a great start to the season, but just slightly off it somewhat in the last... certainly the Wigan game, Burton game at points, they looked a bit ropey, but they did well. They showed a bit of character to come back and get a point. Unlucky not to win that game, incidentally. Adabayijo should have scored. So, I think being aggressive and just not allowing Bolton to play, I think, is the best tactic.
I think probably Adebayo just felt bad for scoring against his old side. Probably, he probably just was like, we'll salvage a draw, and then be clapped off by the home fans from what he did there. I mean, it's as we're talking, transfer deadline day is fast approaching. Only a couple of days away. Well, tomorrow, at the time I'm recording. Do you see anything happening with Bolton prior to Saturday? I appreciate if there's anything that you do know, don't have to say it, but is there movement, or do you see Bolton bringing any sort of bodies in or letting anyone go prior to Saturday?
Yeah, like I said, I think the goalkeeper may be one department he may be forced to bring someone in, depending on Joe Coleman's injury. He's only got. They brought the 2 goalkeepers in the summer. Of course, James Trafford left, and so they had to bring in a couple of goalkeepers just to fill that void. So that may be one to keep an eye on. Other than that, I think they're maybe missing another tough tackling midfielder in the middle, an experienced pro. I know that they lost Kieran Lee in the summer, and I think they're just missing. MJ Williams was another one that wasn't afraid to stick the foot in and just calm things down at times. So wouldn't be surprised if we see a midfielder coming in the door. I know that some supporters would like to see another striker coming in. I mentioned there other players sort of stepping up and helping Dion. They cost a lot of money usually, so it remains to be seen if there'll be business done there. Players will probably be going out the door. The manager did touch on last night that Declan John and Kieran Sadlier are available for transfer. They won't be pushing them out the door, but if they were to move on, then I don't think that would be a major surprise. I don't know if there'll be 1 or 2 big names heading out. As you touched on, I think Dion signing that contract extension is great news. We can sort of relax with regards to that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there is business done before Friday night. You know yourself, there'll probably be rumours and mummerings up until midnight on Friday, won't there? And different sort of deals taking place. So it's a bit of showbiz transfer deadline day, isn't it? So I'd imagine that there might be 1 or 2 incomings and outgoings before Saturday. Whether they feature on Saturday remains to be seen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit of movement.
Yeah, it's always that period of time where it's for fans, it's always exciting seeing people who are linked with you, but then it's also probably the most heartbreaking when you see players linked with moves elsewhere. I mean, we've got a couple of players linked with Premier League clubs and Championship clubs, and it's kind of waiting for that tick clock to obviously chime to say it's the end of the transfer window. But then obviously you do want a couple of extra bodies, which Paul Warne has alluded to, so we might see a bit of movement and some new faces before Saturday. So just looking at Saturday with just a finer eye, when you look at Derby County from a Bolton perspective, what do you see the weaknesses that obviously clubs have managed to get over us early on that Bolton might be able to take advantage of?
Yeah, to be fair, I've not watched too much of them, but as I said, I mean, at the start of the season, we're all thinking Derby will be certainly up there, and I was just hearing reports that a few fans were unhappy with Paul Warne and how he's going about his business. I know he's got a couple of results since then, but I'm not too sure how the fans feel about it. I was speaking to someone about this. I can't remember where, but it's no disrespect to Rotherham, but it's a different sort of mentality at Derby and Rotherham, I guess, and pretty much similar to, I guess, Gareth Ainsworth when he was at Wickham and goes to QPR. Sometimes teams are just made for managers, and I was expecting Paul Warne to be a big success at Derby. I've encountered him a few times at Rotherham. He always speaks very well, and I did envisage them doing well last season and getting into the playoffs. I know that they just missed out, but there's huge pressure on them, of course. Expectation very much like Bolton, so they'll be under pressure as well. They won't fancy coming to the Toughsheet Community Stadium, as it's now known. So,
saw that, yeah.
So yeah, listen, I think it's going to be a cracking game between 2 teams that are many people's favourites to go up. Yeah, it's an intriguing one to call. I'm sure as a neutral, it'll be one to keep a close eye on, but. As I mentioned earlier on, the league won't be won and decided on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I've been keeping a close eye on seeing the results. As I said, I was at Burton at the weekend there as well. I was asking a few people about how have Derby been getting on, and sort of so start to the season. But like you say, Wigan. I think Sean Maloney's doing a cracking job there at the moment, especially after the start. I mean, on minus points, so I think they could be one to keep an eye on as they climb up the leagues, no doubt, as well. So, no disgrace to losing to Wigan, but Saturday I'm sure it'll be a right good contest between 2 good sides.
Exactly, and it's nice to see both clubs now in a stable footing. I mean, I saw that you got a couple of COOs being appointed, and obviously now, as you mentioned, the stadium being rebranded once again. I think that stadium's had rebranding every other year, hasn't it? I mean, Bolton as a whole, is it much more stable as a club and a much more positive place to go and watch a game of football now?
It absolutely is. And I know that, I mean, the chairman came out with a statement the other day there because there was an irate fan having a go at the manager, which was a tad unfair, I think. But you always get one, don't you? But in the main,
Always
I think
one.
that the majority of supporters are really enthusiastic, optimistic, and delighted with the direction the club's going in. You can sense that something special is happening. As I mentioned earlier on, the club have improved season on season under the manager. He said it himself, he wants to guide them back into the Premier League, and the aim this season is to get back into the Championship. We sort of had nearly got there with the Barnsley games in the semis and the playoffs last season. It just proved to be a step too far in the end, but I think that they've recruited well this summer. The squad looks strong, and I can see them really pushing on this season. And the fans feel that as well. As I mentioned, record number of season tickets being sold. There is a feel-good factor around the place again. So I know the manager said last night, just stick with them, trust in the process. Nothing's handed out in September and August and what have you. So judge them come May, and I think they will be there or thereabouts come May. So likewise, Derby, I think they'll be up there pushing towards the automatics come the end of the season. But this should be a good eye-opener at the start of the season. Good marker to see where both teams are at on Saturday. Exactly.
If you were going to put a result on it, what would you say if you were a betting man? What would you go for?
I'm not going to sit on the fence, and I do apologise. I'm going to go for a Bolton 2-1 win.
I'll go for a Derby 2-1 win, just to obviously do the opposite for you. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Derek, once again this season. Appreciate your time. If any Bolton fans are listening, just repeat where they can find you, pal.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. You can follow, not that any Derby fans want to follow the club or myself, but Derek Clark Sport on Twitter if you want to follow myself. And so you can find me there.
Brilliant. And as all Derby fans, we are going for the Football Podcast Awards. If you do listen and like what you're hearing, then please do vote for us. Everything will be in the description below. And you can find us on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you want. And the show will be going out on Wednesday evening. So please keep an eye out for that. And then obviously clips will be going out throughout the week. And we'll be looking forward to Saturday to an exciting clash that Derek will be in attendance. And you'll be very much hoping for a very exciting game rather than some of the ones that we had last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when Paul came up after the 0-0 draw, and he said something like that was what a boring drab game that was, and I think we were all in agreement. But he always speaks well, Paul Warren. But let's hope we get a bit more excitement in this one.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers, Callum.